a dear friend, very, very dear friend, and really one of the original leaders of ZISPOA from the very beginning, and also a leader of our organization, Global Urban Development, GUD. And so thanks for inviting me. And I know I'm looking forward to a great discussion because he always has wonderful students. And so I hope to get to know some of you. And of course, I know Nivea, who was also a key part of all this from the very beginning, and a lovely friend. And also her son, Arthur, was one of the student leaders of ZISPOA, is now studying at the University of California, Berkeley. So a couple of things. First, after all the time we've been here, I should be able to speak Portuguese fluently, but I don't. So I apologize for my English. And also, I guess I've given PowerPoints all the time, and I suppose I could have done that, but I didn't. Felipe didn't ask me to, and I didn't think about it. So now I'm just going to talk with you, but I'll try and talk slowly, and hopefully we'll have a good discussion. If you want to go to globalurban.net, and then you click on the link for Porto Alegre, that has some videos, including a great webinar that we had last year that Felipe was one of the speakers, and some number of articles. Now that's all in English, including the original Leapfrog strategy. But also, if you go to ZISPOA.info, then there's many things in Portuguese. So if you want to follow up, but we have lots of visual stuff, slides and so forth that you can look at that I won't be showing today. So first off, let me just say a little bit about Global Urban Development, GUD, which was founded in 2001. So at the end of this year, it'll be 20 years old. With 10 years to go, it was intended to be, good, thanks. And then also, GUD has two websites. The new one, which is very much oriented towards sustainable innovation zones, and ZISPOA is the globalurban.net, but the original one is globalurban.org, and that has lots of information about everything we've done around the world for the last 2 decades. And if you go to publications, it's got tons of free downloadable PDFs on all sorts of stuff. So please take a look at both of them. We founded GUD in 2001 to basically is a kind of a international nonprofit save the world organization, and it grew to be a huge network worldwide with, we say, more than 700 leaders and experts in 60 countries, all united by this vision, where we wanted to have a 30-year strategy to alter the course of humanity, which in 2001 was going in the wrong direction. We were hoping by the end of 2030, it would be going much more in the right direction. And as we said, our purpose was to enable all people everywhere in the world to live and thrive in peace with each other and in peace with nature. And so we focused on a particular kind of economic development that I've been working on all my life, really since the late 1960s, that focuses on sustainability, on innovation, and on inclusiveness. So when we started 20 years ago, we called it Metropolitan Economic Strategy, which was an actual national policy that I developed for President Clinton. I was a senior official in his government, and that's where we first came up with this idea of Metropolitan Economic Strategy. And GUD has been globalizing this approach, but so now we call it Metropolitan Economic Strategy, Sustainable Innovation, and Inclusive Prosperity. And we did it around the world in many countries. We, like I say, in terms of what you're interested in sustainability, that work goes all the way back to the 1970s in California, as Felipe mentioned, in the early days of the environmental movement, when we were losing battles over economics, and people would say, well, you want to have clean air or a job? You want to have clean water or to feed your family? We said, we have to flip it around. We have to be able to say, if you want to have a job, you must have clean air. If you want to feed your family, you must have clean water. So we called it good environment is good economics. So basically it was a way of doing economic growth and development to grow businesses, jobs, incomes, assets by becoming more sustainable, not less. And we even came up with ultimately this 4-part model that we called it the 4 greens. Green savings, which sustainability doesn't cost you money, it saves you money because you're conserving resources, you're reusing resources through circular economy, you're using renewable resources all much more efficiently. So that's big savings. In California, believe it or not, in the 1970s, where we started doing energy efficiency on requiring it on all new electrical appliances, all new buildings, all new motor vehicles. The net of it over decades, by now, people collectively in California have saved more than $100 billion that they otherwise would have spent on energy and electricity. And it didn't even change their lifestyle. They still have, cars and, heating and cooling buildings and modern appliances and everything they had otherwise. It's just that they're using a lot less energy to operate all of them, with big technological breakthroughs and things like refrigerators and so forth. So green savings is the starting point. And then here's the beautiful part of it. In order to achieve the green savings, you have to develop new products, new services, new ways of doing things. And that becomes green opportunities. So this is the economic growth of the 21st century. Millions. Now you hear Joe Biden talking about this. Ultimately, even the U.S. government adopted our approach. So millions of new jobs. So the savings pays for the growth. In terms of investing in the future. And then the third part of it we call green talent, which is all of you are the green talent, having the skills of the future that's needed to achieve this sustainable economy. And the last part of it is what we call green places. So you're not just transforming businesses, but also the places where people live and work, and through sustainable mobility and all the other ways that you do that. And of course, that's kind of what the ZIS idea is about, to take, to bring it all together to transform places and involve everyone in doing that. And that's how you make the change. We, as Gandhi said, we be the change that we seek. And as we succeed, more people get involved, more people benefit from it, more people support it, and you scale it up on a global basis. So we have in the U.S., I think through GOD, we actually were very involved in during the period leading up to and when Obama was president, in moving things very much forward at the state and local level. And now we see the results of that, 14 years later with the new president, Biden's Build Back Better plan that's really adopted the approach that we were advocating. So as we made progress in US and Canada and in Europe, we felt that it was absolutely vital to make the same kind of progress in the emerging economies of the global South, or the developing world, whatever you want to call it. And we worked particularly from the very beginning in 4 countries: in Brazil, starting in 2001, in China, in India, and South Africa. And after a decade, and that's how we ended up here, we decided that to go all in on Brazil and to find a place in Brazil where we could have a very intensive effort to enable the transformation that California went through since the 1970s. But instead of taking 4 decades to do it, we thought, because the technologies are more advanced, because we know much more about how to do this stuff than we did then, because there's more support for it, we thought it could go much faster. So in this case, Grande, we thought could do in 20 years what California did in 40. And so we worked in a lot of places in Brazil, in São Paulo, in Rio de Janeiro, in Curitiba, where we started, in Belo Horizonte. And but in the end, we decided to go with Porto Alegre. I can talk more about that, why we thought that was the Gauchos were and the Porto Alegrenses were the most promising to do what we tried to do. And that all began, it's hard to believe, almost a decade ago. We first started connecting with Porto Alegre in September of 2011. So it'll be 10 years in a few months from now. And then it got even crazier, because 2 years later, in September 2013, my wife, Nancy, and I moved here to work for the state government as consultants on a big project that was funded by the World Bank to do a economic strategy for the entire state, and which we ended up calling the Leapfrog strategy, because for how Grande could leap ahead into the future rather than trying to catch up from behind, jump ahead into the future and become like California or Baden-Württemberg in Germany and other really very dynamic economies that were highly sustainable and moving rapidly and energetically, aggressively in that direction. So what started out as 1 year, and of course it's Brazil, so everything got delayed and took longer, so that stretched into 2 years. And we did this strategy, which you can read, it's like 200 pages, for Grande to become the most sustainable and most innovative place in Latin America by 2030. The reason we said the most in Latin America is because the Gauchos are very proud, and they're like, well, of course we would be the best in Latin America. But it was harder to argue that it would be even though we're saying you should be the best in the world, they were like, no, we can't do that. But best in Latin America, okay. So we completed the report in 2015, March of 2015. And so it was at that point a 15-year strategy. And our client, the governor of Rio Grande do Sul back then, Tarso Genro, and his team, who had hired us, they liked the report, and as soon as he got reelected, he was going to do it. But then he didn't get reelected. So, and we've had that experience a lot. A lot of the consulting work that GUD does is with city governments, state governments, and you always have this problem with elected officials, is that they come and they go. And often when they go and the new ones come, everything starts all over again. And sure enough, by the time we submitted the report, Sartori was the governor. And actually, a lot of people around him really liked the report. For example, Cesar Busato, who was on the a leader of GUD and who was a leader in the city government, he was from the same party as Sartori, the PMDB, and he was a big advocate for what we were doing, and so were others. And so they said, well, we can't really do the strategy because we just said that the governor was terrible and it was his strategy. But they encouraged us to work at the local level, including in Caxias do Sul, where Sartori had been the mayor. And our mayor here in Porto Alegre, Jose Fortunacci, was very positive, and they encouraged us to move forward with the Leapfrog strategy. So we were in a funny position because we were international consultants, and instead of leaving and going home, which is probably what we would have normally done, we were asked to stay around to try and implement our own recommendations. And then the question was how to do that. Now, the centerpiece of the strategy was to do what we called sustainable innovation zones in cities all over the state around universities, because you need a lot of brain power and a whole wide range of skills and high energy that students bring, as well as faculty, and entrepreneurial kind of energy, as well as activist kind of energy. So we thought the universities would be the way to make great advances in developing new products, new services, new startups, in transforming neighborhoods, communities around the university in a very high, active, intensive way. And it would attract talent from all over and attract people that wanted to get engaged and get involved and do things as a kind of a citizen movement. And so that's what we did. And we did, we started out with, there was a hub that had been created. Actually, GUD joined it from the beginning, helped create it, called Paralelo Vivo, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. Kind of a startup hub, co-working space, maker space, collaborative house, activity center, focused on not just sustainability, but sustainable business, sustainable entrepreneurship. And there was a group called Pulsar that's still around that was managing it, and they were doing something at Urgas called the Desafio Emprendedor, the entrepreneurship challenge. And they asked me to be a mentor for that. And through the Desafio, there were a lot of students that got all excited about the Leapfrog strategy and wanted to really do something. And what they suggested was, let's do a course. And through the course, let's figure out if we can actually organize a Porto Alegre Sustainable Innovation Zone as like a citizen movement. And so we went ahead and did that course starting in October of 2015. And there was about 40 people, including Felipe was in the course. So we had students, we had professors, we had entrepreneurs, it was a whole wide range of people. And one of the things that we did was we defined the area where we would do the zone. Originally, it was a part of two byros, Independencia and Floresta. The two main anchors were Nas Co-working at Shopping Total, which was a big co-working space, and Villa Flores in Floresta, which is, of course, still there. The zone now we expanded it 5 times. So now it's all are part of 10 byros. So in addition to Independencia and Floresta, includes Bonfim, Cidade Baixa, Farroupilha, Centro Histórico, Rio Branco, Santa Cecilia, Santana, Azenia. So I think I got all 10 of them there. And not all of them, all of those 10 byros, but a big part of it. And so what we said was that a sustainable innovation zone is based on combining together 6 key elements: innovation and technology, entrepreneurship and startups, sustainability and resource efficiency, creativity and collaboration, participatory community management, and business-friendly environment. So the way we did the first 2 courses, because we did one and then we did a second one after that for another 40 people, was we organized everyone into 6 groups for each of the 6 elements. Their job was to come up with at least one project that they were going to do over the next 6 months after the course. When we did the second course, we had all those people join the groups from the first course. So the same 6 groups, they just got larger. And it was amazing that, as each week went by, there was just more and more excitement going around, more and more people getting involved. The city government did a video, about a 3-minute video, which you can see on our websites, that went viral and became very popular. We did worked on a climate march leading up to the Paris, where they did the Paris Agreement, and that got a lot of publicity. And the net of it is when we had on December 15, 2015, when we had the final class session where the 6 groups presented the projects that they were going to do, there was there was like more than 100 people there that came to watch. And Parallel Viva, we couldn't even fit everyone inside. You had people standing out on the patio looking in through the window. And by that point, as Felipe mentioned, we had been recognized by the Swedish government. They had this big international program called the Smart Living Challenge, and they had some big meeting in Paris with more than 100 people there and nobody from here. And they voted their number 1 priority for 2016 was to support ZISPOA to help achieve the Leapfrog strategy. So that became as Felipe mentioned, it became a long and fruitful relationship where we worked with them on Sweden-Brazil Innovation Week, which they do in cities around Brazil, but in Porto Alegre the theme was sustainability. So we were kind of something that Curitiba had kind of owned that theme. And by the way, Jaime Lerner, who is the legendary, mayor of Curitiba, started all that. He just passed away 2 weeks ago. He was one of the founders of GOD and one of our vice chairs. So we started just taking action and producing results and doing projects. We had we had at Villa Flores for World Environment Day, we had this festival, ZISPOA festival. There were like 500 people and all kind of exhibits and activities. And we launched a seminar series. In fact, Felipe was the first speaker in that on sustainability that ultimately came to be called ZIS Talks. We had a mentorship for entrepreneurs. We had a community garden and composting center at a kind of unused recycling facility that we did in partnership with the city that led to 2 businesses growing out of that. Heciclo, that some of you know, it recycles food waste, and then for residential folks, and then another one that grew out of that called Arco does the same with for stores, commercial food waste. We launched a bike sharing private business that was really called We Bike. Now it's called Loopy, that actually operates now in a number of cities in here, Grande, and also work with the city on really expanding the bike share, program, and which is why I think the most bike lanes and the most bike sharing facilities are inside ZISPOA. We built an electric car charging station at Shopping Total because we were trying to get the Swedish government to give us a electric Volvo, because we had a plan that was done by students just like you in the social environmental management course to have electric car sharing. So we never got the car. We have the charging station. We still don't have electric car sharing. So that's something we got to still work on. But one thing that also grew out of work of students in with Felipe is the solar post. That was a competition among students, and the winners were the project in the courtyard of the management school, where they raised the money, and we work with Elysia. So you've all seen that, the big pole, and on the top of it is a solar panel and a battery, and at eye level are USB ports. So you can charge your phone or tablet or whatever from renewable energy. That was the first solar panel in all of Urgus. And I think it still is. So we need to do a lot more. We then later did over on João Teles. This was another big project, the sustainable parklet, which includes a solar post, and also took away 3 parking spaces, and it's made from what are called eco blocks. That was a project that grew out of Urgus, working with an NGO that worked with helps create livelihoods for low-income families. They recycle concrete and make these blocks, and that's what, instead of wood like some of the other parklets, we use the eco blocks to build the parklet. We launched that in December of 2019, and it was going to be the beginning of a number of parklets throughout ZISPOA. There were 3 more that were planned, but then unfortunately all that got put aside because of COVID. But the first one we got it done just in time, so that's still there. You can see that, and there were many more things I could go on and on. We did 2 huge UN urban thinkers campuses at Urgus and other locations, one in 2017, one in 2019. And all of it had a big effect. First, in the beginning, hardly anybody believed that it was possible, that outside of government, just a group of people on their own could say, we're going to take on this challenge as volunteers, with our own resources. We're going to change things. And it was amazing. In the first couple of years in particular, there were hundreds of people involved. It was really very inspiring. And that kind of overlapped with a big event that happens every year called Vrata Sustentavel. Like one example, when in 2015, so that was just, 2016, 5 years ago, when we did the World Environment Day Festival at Villa Flores, and we helped bring back the memory of Jose Lutzenberger and of Magda Henner and Giselle de Castro, and some of the great leaders in all of Brazil of the environmental movement going back to the 1970s came from Porto Alegre. Now the younger generation isn't aware of that, so we kind of wanted to honor them. So that was one event in one day. And in 2019, before COVID, during that whole week in June, there were dozens of events that involving thousands of people, so that even that was an example of a kind of that we showed that was possible for people to get together and really do things. And that grew and grew and had a big impact around the city. And ZISPOA, even though it's an area in the city, the people that were involved were from all over the city and even the region. Another big impact was on URGS itself, where we had so many students involved that it led to creating a faculty group called ZISPOA. And there were a lot of professors from many different schools and departments and programs across the university that got actively involved in ZISPOA. Also from other universities like UXPA, but it was centered at URGS. And one of the results of that is that we have now this interdisciplinary graduate post-graduation program called SIP, Sustainable Innovation Professional, that Felipe is one of the leaders of that, one of the main professors. Angela Danilovitz, who is the head of civil engineering and engineering, she's a leader of that. Stephanie DePaula, another engineering professor, is a key part of that. Fabian Dominguez from economics. So we had to postpone it several times now because of COVID, but finally next year in March will be the launching of this program, and you all can do it. So basically, in addition to getting your master's degree or PhD, if you do this 2-semester core course and then take some other approved courses in your field that you probably would be taking anyway, you then get to graduate with this Sustainable Innovation Professional Certificate, you see, as like an additional credential for your career. So that program is going to happen. We had a project which is still going on, to have the Centenario building be the greenest building in Porto Alegre. A lot of students, faculty are working on that, and many other things, including that both the previous HATOR and the new one have committed for URGS to become a world leader among universities in sustainable innovation by 2030 in teaching and research, in facilities management of the campus, in community involvement, and so forth. So we're very proud of that. We also had the experience that the state government, under the third governor, believe it or not, we've been doing this so long, we're on our third mayor and our third governor. But under the third governor, Eduardo Leite, he created a Secretariat of Innovation, Science, and Technology, headed by Luis Lambi, who had been was a professor from URGS. And they basically they created a program called Innova ESI, that's a kind of a version of the Leapfrog strategy. And and how do we know that? Because when Lambi went to create the secretariat, and he inherited a staff of people that were already working for the state government, he brought in a deputy secretary who now is a man named Fernando Matos, who's now the secretary for the city government of innovation. And then the first 2 people that Lambi hired were 2 graduates from URGS, Thiago de Abreu and Andre Franza, who were leaders of ZISPOA. And partly was because, in addition to ZISPOA, in a couple of years ago, a smaller city in Rio Grande do Sul, Santo Angelo, I think it's about 100,000 people, they took our idea and said the whole city is a ZIS. The whole city is a sustainable innovation zone called ZISON, and that's still going. So in the 8 regions of Rio Grande do Sul, 2 of them already have ZISs. So now they're working in Litoral Norte and the other places to do the same thing. So that's happening. And one other thing I was going to mention about students, and then I don't want to go on too long so we could have a good discussion, but when the students in Felipe's class did the project on the solar post, and one of the students, Carolina Cavallero, then after she graduated, went to work for Elysia Solar Company, the one that actually made the solar post. And what was so fantastic about that is that when we did the parklet on Juan Teles with Elysia doing the solar post, Carolina was the project manager for that project. So it's a nice way of, building the teamwork and the ecosystem that we need to transform Porto Alegre and here Grande. So we, at this point, my journey and my wife Nancy's journey is coming to an end. We're going to be heading back to the U.S. sometime over the next couple of months. But ZISPOA is strong and resilient. Right now, there's kind of two main projects. One is the transformation of Urgis, and we absolutely need all of you to be part of that. And the other is, when we started, we had these 5 big goals, because we said, if we wanted to be, if Rio Grande do Sul was going to be the most sustainable and innovative place in Latin America by 2030, then we thought, well, ZISPOA should become the most sustainable, innovative place in Rio Grande do Sul by 2025. So. And so we said we were going to focus on becoming the most solar powered, the most energy efficient, the most bike friendly as a kind of symbol of sustainable mobility, although it includes other things, the most renewable technology friendly, we called it, which means circular economy, zero waste. And the last one, which in the end we never worked on, was the most digitally connected. But we did work on the first 4. And in fact, there were several projects related to circular economy, including one that we did with working with the city government on waste management, in addition to the composting. I talked about the bike stuff and the electric car sharing stuff. The energy efficiency, really the only example of that now is on Centenario. But on solar power, we really worked a lot with the city council to promote that, and for public policy. We helped promote startup businesses that grew. Elysia is one. Another one's called Yes. Used to be Young Energy Solar, now it's Yes. And other solar companies. But we wanted to make more progress faster. And so we got this idea. So we have this POA Solar group, and we're trying to figure out how could ZISPOA be the most solar powered place in Latin America. And so we worked for a year on trying to do a cooperative where you are you have the solar panels like on some roofs or in some places, generating lots of electricity, then you share with lots of people, including people living in apartments could join, or, you don't have to put solar panels on your own building. You just belong to the cooperative. Turns out, because of laws and regulations and taxes, it was too difficult to do a cooperative. But a startup business that grew out of ZISPOA, originally called Print Up 3D, some of the people from that, one of them, Leonardo Kratz-Mendes, they have come up with an actual for-profit business that they're already doing in Bento Gonçalves, where they get a piece of land, like with a farmer. They put a whole solar array on there. The farmer gets free electricity plus some rent payment. And then they sell through the grid the renewable electricity to individual customers. And then they're getting solar energy at a discount. It's 10 to 20% cheaper than the regular energy. So we thought maybe this is the way to do it. So we have this group that is our biggest project outside of Urgis, to try and solarize ZISPOA by using this model of seeing that if we can spread it by individual customers signing up for this business. We tried to get a huge grant to do a more ambitious project to work with some low-income cooperatives that would involve recycling glass, using solar power for electricity, but recycling glass to make a new business, new sustainable business with glass jewelry. That would be a cooperative, and that hasn't happened yet, but maybe it will. And Villa Flores and Casa Jose and other entities were very involved with that. So I could go on and on and on, but it's probably better for you to ask questions for us to talk. But let me say the last part of it, which is why we're leaving, which is that we believe, as we believed even before we did ZISPOA, that sustainable innovation zones are one of the best ways in the world to transform the world. Because for one thing, it enables, because you have universities everywhere and colleges, and they can be the leaders of the change and the anchors. And then you've got all this fantastic brain power and talent and human energy connected with those institutions to lead the way, working with citizens, working with entrepreneurs, working with government, working with the community. And then the other thing that's beautiful about it is that you're transforming a smaller place so people can get involved and make the change and see the results. So that's why we always focus on doing things that you could see, like the solar post, say. And so once you have a critical mass of a lot of those things, then you've inspired a lot of people to believe in a better future. You've proven that it's good for business, it's good for the economy, it's good for their livelihoods and incomes, and you can scale it up. You've now learned a lot to be able to scale it up to much larger areas and people and spread it. So it was always intended, like participatory budgeting that started here in Porto Alegre and spread around the world, that ZISPOA would be the first of a big international movement that GUD would lead. And so we started 2 years ago trying to spread it. We had one success. There's the third Sustainable Innovation Zone called ACTA in Panama City, Panama, that was organized by a lot of young professionals, like yourselves, led by a very dynamic young architect, Jose Barria. And then we began to go further. We said, okay, we had GUD people trying to organize one in London and one in Toronto and one in Brooklyn in New York City and one in Sydney, Australia. All of that kind of got put on hold by COVID. But now at this point, some of that's coming back, like Sydney. And my wife, Nancy, and I, our next step, we don't know yet where, but we're going to go back to the US, and I'm going to, just in the same way I was a professor here at Urgus, I'm going to become a professor at some university where that university will provide the leadership to do a sustainable innovation zone modeled on ZISPOA, and will be a kind of a sister relationship, collaborative relationship with ZISPOA. And so what we're hoping is that that the one in the US will get more attention and will help kind of revive the ones we want to do in London and other places. And that within a few years, this model will be spreading all over the world in two ways, both the zones themselves, the ZISs, and also the ZIS-Prof groups. We think that we really showed in a very inspiring way that professors that don't normally talk to each other, that are in different programs, different departments, could come together to provide leadership to do as part of their job, as part of teaching and research. Felipe was the absolute pioneer and hero, because from the very beginning, he was the one that had the idea to have students work on projects related to ZISPOA. And that spread. There have now been many dozens of courses at Urgus. Many of his, and thank you for that, but also now many others that were inspired by that, where students learned a lot as part of their education. They did something, they accomplished things that they're really proud of. They had a lot of fun, and it had a big impact, because we didn't have zillions of Weiss to pay people to do everything. So we relied on volunteers. So one of the best ways, all the work that students did was a fantastic way to get a lot accomplished. So it was a win-win all the way around. And so we think that ZISPROF could become a global network, kind of modeled on what we did here at Urgus. So let me, I'm happy to take broader questions about sustainable cities and resilient cities and smart cities and all of that. But let's kind of, let me stop there, because I'm sure you may have a lot of questions. And here's the most important thing: as we leave, even though we accomplished a lot, we didn't accomplish nearly as much as we hoped. And it's going to take a real serious effort by really serious, thoughtful, caring, dedicated, committed people like yourselves, because I know every one of you that's studying with your professor is doing it because you care deeply about the future of the world and the future of sustainability. We need you to re-engage in ZISPOA to help enable it to really succeed and have the bigger impact on Porto Alegre and on the region, on Rio Grande do Sul, that can still happen, but has a long way to go, before we all accomplish that together. So I want to appeal to you to learn more about it, to talk to your professor and other professors, and really get involved. And the beautiful thing about ZISPOA was that it was totally open-ended. So you can create your own project or your own startup, as well as joining with others on existing activities. So it's custom made for you to fit with your interests, your work, what you care about, in whatever combination you want to do it. Let me thank you and stop there and see. I hope I didn't go on too long. See if there are any questions or comments. And Felipe, do you want to add anything? And since you were, one of the main leaders all along, and know as much about this as I do, and had as much to do as I do. Do you want to add anything?
I think you talk is very clear, and maybe if people want to know more about some experience, you can ask now. So we can open to questions, and
Nivea, do you want to add anything? You were part of all this. Would you like to say anything?
Nivea is traveling now. I don't know if
Oh, it's too difficult. Okay, all right.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Oh, are you in your car?
Yeah, she and
Sorry, Marc, I mean, but I was paying attention.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah. Well, if you want to add anything at any point, please do.
I'm here with someone that you know.
Show.
Oh my God! Look at that.
Your driver.
Is that Artur?
Yeah.
Oh, he should definitely. Yes. You should pull over. He should talk for a few minutes to the students. Yes.
But, so they are going to the airport.
I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes, please.
But the signal plays. But it's great to hear you, Marc.
Thank you. So Arthur was in the first course, and he was one of the main leaders, all the time until he went to California. So he would be good to, hear a lot from about all of it.
Mhm.
So, and does anybody, or if you want to ask me about anything or share anything, or your own work that you're doing, your own experiences, how it connects.
Yeah.
See if we,
You can ask in Portuguese if you want. You have
yes, that'd be fine.
here.
Yeah.
So to begin, when the people are thinking, Mark, could you talk about the best example of sustainable cities in the world? Which cities do you consider more sustainable nowadays?
Well, Freiburg, Germany, great model. Um,
What they have there that you consider is important?
well, it became one of, as part of the energy transformation, that Germany embarked on. Freiburg became sort of the, by having the Fraunhofer is this kind of industry, government, university partnerships in different fields. So the one for solar energy went there, and it became the capital of solar energy with, many businesses and thousands of jobs. And they transformed areas of the city to be incredibly green in terms of resource efficiency and walkability, and just there are a lot of, it became really well known for being a very sustainable place, including it's also the kind of the center of the Green Party in Germany, so even politically. But the Scandinavian places like Copenhagen, Stockholm, and so forth. In the U.S., places like Vancouver, San Francisco, Portland. So there, you have small places that became very green. You have some larger cities that went down that road. You also have efforts to build totally new places to be very green, like Songdo in Korea, or Masdar in Abu Dhabi. Singapore is another example. So no place is perfect. And I know Barcelona, another example. Different places are done better on some things than others. Like some places have a great bike infrastructure, like Amsterdam. Some places are strong on renewable energy, and so forth. So there's no like ideal, perfect, super sustainable place that's great on everything. But there are many best practices examples from quite a number of cities around the world. And some of them have done so many different things that, they really stand out. And I guess maybe that was kind of what happened with Freiburg. Curitiba became very famous early on because of developing, under Jaime Lerner's leadership, the idea of bus rapid transit. So they, a sustainable mobility system that, at one time, half the population used, for daily travel. Unfortunately, as they got more affluent, they were switching to cars. So, it's not as well used as it was, but it did point the way to something that many other cities followed, because it was, if you could tie in transportation and land use by having higher density walkability around the routes and the stations. It was way cheaper to operate than building a subway, or building highways. And now, of course, you could do it with electric buses. If you have renewable electricity, that even makes it that much more sustainable.
Mhm.
So there are places, you know, that, like I
Yeah.
say, if you pick your issue, you know, like San Francisco, there are places that have 100% are very good on recycling. You know, places are very good on mobility. Places are very good on energy.
Mhm.
But so hopefully, as time goes on, they're going to be more put together, so places are sustainable all the way around. You know.
Okay. So guys, now it's your turn. Any questions?
Oh, please, yeah.
Eliana? Eliane?
Hi, Mark. I would like to speak in English just to practice a little bit more, but you told us about inclusive prosperity, and I know that it's pretty hard discussions about this, even though in Brazil. So can you tell us about some challenges that you face during these years, speaking about inclusive prosperity in Brazil, not only about the politicians, but also I think that it's pretty hard to speak about this with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny because I had spent a big part of my life going all the way back to the 1960s working with low and moderate income urban people and neighborhoods and cooperatives and labor unions and community development corporations, you know, and trying to increase prosperity for people that were further behind and more left out. And the idea of the model was the sustainable innovation would be the breakthrough, and that once you're generating growth of businesses, jobs, incomes, assets, wealth, all of that through sustainability, then you include everyone in that and share in the benefits, in the contribution to it and the benefits from it. And that was the Leapfrog strategy was based on that. But we never, you know, at this here, we didn't get far enough yet for that. You know what I mean? We wanted to, but we said, well, the first step, which was hard enough, was just to establish sustainable innovation as the right model. For one thing, because the people that were into innovation, like information technology, digital technology, weren't necessarily into sustainability. So we have to get people to see it's not just innovation. You want sustainable innovation. You want technological innovation for sustainability. So that was one big battle that we had to fight here. And to some extent, we succeeded in that. I think like Luis Carlos, who's the head of the engineering school and heads Porto Alegre, he totally embraces this idea. So we made progress on that. Secondly, we had to then show that you could generate businesses and jobs and incomes by actually doing it. And, you know, we're only 5 years in, so, you know, some things were accomplished, but not a lot. Now, this kind of transformational change takes a long time. You know, like in Washington, D.C., there's something called NOMA that was transit-oriented development that I did. You know, I was the leader of that in the 1990s. And now, 20 years later, it's enormous success. You know, this generated billions of new investment and many thousands of jobs, and it's the greenest place in the whole Washington region. But, including we built a new transit station that was all based on. But after 5 years in NOMA, not much had changed. You see what I mean? So it's important to remember that. And so the idea of the inclusive prosperity, we only in the last couple of years even started down that road. As I mentioned, that whole project working with the recyclers and the low-income cooperatives, so of how they could benefit from renewable energy, and even we're going to try and do low-speed electric vehicles, because you know the recyclers are not, first they couldn't use horses. Now they can't use carts. So we're trying to figure out a way to get these inexpensive, low-speed electric vehicles that they could use, that they would charge the electric vehicles from the solar power, you see. So that was a big first step. And, but there's a long way to go. And it's very, as you know, in Brazil, it's difficult because there's a huge class divide, you know, and so even if somebody's from a poor background, by the time they get to university, they're in a whole different world. So how do you really get everyone to work together and have the low income people and families be part of it is a big challenge. It's something that must be done if we're really going to succeed. But we so far didn't make much progress on it.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Stefan, want to ask?
Yes, please.
I think my question is in the same line, but which do you think is the main barriers for adoption of electric vehicles, especially in public transportation?
The biggest, I'm going to give a step back a bit. That's a great question. This is why I've been doing this work for a half a century, because Albert Einstein has this wonderful quote. He says, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created the problem. And that is the biggest challenge we face in the whole world. The failure of imagination, you say. For example, even in California in the 1970s, when we were like, said, oh, if we have, we have a refrigerator that's using a huge amount of electricity to operate. If you created a much more efficient refrigerator, it would work better with less electricity and you would save a lot of money. And people didn't believe it. I mean, they had to literally experience, because there was this mindset of modernism, everything new is better than old, and more is better than less, and so how do we get people to change where they had this idea, because if you look at the world, especially the Western world or the global North, whatever it's called, since the Industrial Revolution, it's literally true that people raised their standard of living by overusing and wasting resources, especially renewable resources, and abusing and exploiting the natural environment, right? So when you say to people, well, we need to live in peace with nature, we need to be in harmony and balance with the ecosystem, we need to conserve resources, use renewable resources and all that, the one way people hear that is, oh, that's going to make me poor, or if they're still poor, they hear it like, well, then I'll always be poor. So we literally had to prove the opposite was true. That's why at GED we had the saying, you get richer by becoming greener, not poorer, better off economically, you see. And so that's just a huge barrier where people think, well, the way things are the way they should be, and you don't need to change, or it's risky or dangerous to change. So this would be an example. Why the public transportation hasn't converted to electric buses? They should. They operate much more efficiently at lower costs, and especially, and if you have renewable electricity, saves the planet. You see, so it's a win-win all the way around. And you have companies even like Volvo and others that make electric buses. Same with electric vehicles. I started working on electric vehicles in the 1970s. And now, finally, a half century later, people are waking up like, oh, we have to get rid of internal combustion engine and fossil fuel, and electric vehicle is the way of the future. Only just in the last year, I think, is it really beginning to take off. I don't know if you heard, but Ford makes a truck. It's the best-selling truck in the world, the F-150. And they just came out a month ago with an electric F-150. And one of the things that's amazing about it is the battery is so big that you could power your house for a few days from the truck battery. You said, and so people realizing not only is it faster, more powerful, and much cheaper, but it's like having your own electric generator on wheels. And so if the electric F-150 becomes the most popular, that's going to be a game changer in the world, because the kind of people that drive these trucks were the people that thought, oh, sustainability is bad, you know, renewable energy is bad, you know what I mean? And it was a kind of a mindless thinking. It wasn't really, you know, I did in 1979 for Berkeley, California, for the city, the first sustainable economic development strategy in America. He said Berkeley can become a world center of energy efficiency and renewable energy. Solar was just a new technology then, photovoltaic cells, wind turbines, that was a new technology. You know, old windmills have been around forever, but wind turbines, that was new. Including electric vehicles was kind of a new technology then. And we did the strategy, and Berkeley actually did it. It is a world center. But I watched it take many decades for people to like see the truth, you say. And so when you ask why it's not done, sometimes there's no good reason, just stupid reasons, stubborn, you know, reasons. And then there also is the problem of the vested interests. So you have the fossil fuel industry that's very rich and powerful, and the electric utilities that are allied with them and so forth. And they have gone, just like the tobacco industry fought for decades to hide the truth. Fossil fuel industry has continued to promote this completely false idea that it's safe, it's not, that it's healthy, it's not, that it's cheaper, it's not, that it's better, it's definitely not, now that we know about climate change. But look at here, Grande, so even after we did the Leapfrog strategy and we did ZISPOA, last year they decided now they want to start mining coal in Guaíba. And it was like, are you insane? You could power the entire state of Rio Grande do Sul from wind energy. Why do you need coal? It's even lousy coal. Now, somebody that owns the land is going to get very rich off of it, you know, and which is probably how why it was happening. But it takes a long time for people to change. And this is why I want to say this with all my heart. The work that you're all doing is so important to show that change is possible and to educate people about it.
Yeah, one more question. I asked Marc to talk around half hour, and you are talking about 1.5 hours. So we are not serious in Brazil, Marc. So to finish then, Marc, I wanted to ask you about after this experience in Rio Grande do Sul, in Porto Alegre, how do you feel now when you are returning to the United States? Or what are you feeling now?
Well, I hate to leave in the sense that we love, you know, you know, it's funny because somebody was saying the other day, the gauchos are supposedly the least friendly in Brazil, but compared to the rest of the world, it doesn't matter. It's just been, everyone has been so warm and friendly and wonderful that it's been just a pleasure to be here. And Porto Alegre is a wonderful city. I love it. When we first came, I called it the San Francisco South America and the Barcelona of Brazil, and still very special. And as you can see from my picture, living across the street from Head and Son has been amazing. And in this wonderful, walkable, very neighborhood where there's a lot of sustainability stuff going on, in food, in bicycling, in all sorts of ways. And so we're sad to go, but at the same time, I will say that, and this is when we started a decade ago, and even when we moved here in 2013, Brazil was still full of optimism about the future, coming off this decade of change that, when Lula was president. And a lot has gone the wrong way since then, as I know you all know very well. In fact, I even when we started ZISPOA, that was during the time when the impeachment of Dilma was happening, and I thought it couldn't get any worse than that, but now it's gotten a lot worse than that. And so in that sense, I feel sad to leave because of all the love and warmth, but I also feel sad because we were very hopeful and optimistic for Brazil then, and it's harder to feel that way now. So it's even a bigger challenge, I think, everyone faces, to start over again, moving things back in the right direction and turning it around. But luckily, there's lots of great people that are here to do that.
Okay, so I think we didn't walk so as fast as we could, but we walk in this period, and I wanted to thank you for you plant a lot of seeds here, and I'm sure that in the future you will see the results of this.
Well, let me thank, sorry, I was going to thank you particularly, especially from deep in my heart, for your leadership and friendship, and to thank all of you for the work that you're doing. And I hope and pray you continue to do more of it and gather lots of more people around you to have a bigger impact. And you're welcome to become part of not only ZISPOA, but part of GUD. And, even though now with Zoom, doesn't matter where you are in the world, so I'll still be involved here. And if there's any way I could help you with your projects and work that you're doing, I'll be happy to do that. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry I interrupted you. I think you were going to say more. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Nive wanted to talk.
Marc,
yes.
Dá para ouvir?
Sim.
Marc, just to say thank you for your incansável, heartless work to our city, Porto Alegre. As a citizen from Porto Alegre, it's touched my heart. And as a friend, of course, thank you. As a student, thank you for your wonderful talk to us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Hope to see you soon.
See you soon. Yes, we're going to hug before too long. Yeah. And Arthur, I guess, is driving. See you. And also, I feel very proud because I was part of the movement in the 1970s that made Berkeley the place that Arthur went to, because it has this now world famous energy and resources program that's one of the world's leaders on renewable energy. So back in the 1970s, that didn't exist, but I'm glad it's there now. And Arthur, I'm glad you're part of it.
Thank you for your help and for Felipe's help to get me there.
Yes, it's a pleasure. You earned it. If ZISPOA would have had, we had some students like Arthur. He wasn't the only one, but if we would have had a few hundred students like Arthur, we would have had a much bigger transformation of Porto Alegre.
We changed the world.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much for all. Say hello to Nancy. And
Will do.